We are now recording, and welcome again to the Humanities and Social Science workshop. And just to say, I'm Erin Durham. I'm here with my colleague, Drew Alfgren, so welcome. Today, we're going to really focus on preparing to write literature reviews, how to organize, how to find sources, and just basically how to get started is kind of the goal for today. For those of you who are just joining, if you want to share your major or your area of study in the chat, it's nice to see. We have some folks in the sociology program. We have folks in the first year public policy, health, IT, entrepreneurship. So it's kind of fun to see the range of disciplines and backgrounds.
Because the social sciences cover a whole lot of, with your econ major, okay, I mean, you've got the hard social sciences and then you've got the softer social sciences. It's straight into the humanities. So the literatures are going to be different for the different groups, but the approach to the literatures is usually pretty standard.
And again, thanks to the Center for Social Science Scholarship for posting about this workshop and offering resources and partnering with the library. And we are recording it, so you can always go back and take a look. All right, we are going to just share an overview, what a literature review is, what it helps you to do. Basically, the literature review is an opportunity to analyze, to look for arguments that scholars are making in the field. You're able to synthesize some of those, the major findings, how the scholarly conversation has evolved over time. And it also allows you, especially if you're a graduate student, to identify a gap in the research. The gap is really critical because the gap allows you to position yourself to make a contribution to your field. You can say, this is what the scholars have been talking about. Here's some different themes. Here is how my research is unique and provides.
And that's what Miriam and I were, who's watching this, were trying to do when we had our consult.
So, oh, that's right. Excellent.
Now, just as what it is not is the type of literature review that you see coming up, usually called systematic review or a systemic review. This is different from that. Those are where you're trying to capture everything, or at least every successful experiment, project, whatever on a topic, and then reviewing all of that for commonalities. This isn't that. This is the other kind of literature review where you are marking your place in the research. So.
Yes, if you're working on an academic article, if you're working on a dissertation, you're trying to
master's thesis, whatever.
So. Exactly. And it shows that you've done your homework, that you have put in a lot of time to read the literature. You've put in a lot of time to document how you fit within and how you contribute. And it definitely shows your larger awareness of the conversation. It allows you to make an argument that your contribution is very relevant and needed in the field. All right, so general steps, you definitely want to identify a research question, and all of these are to be done with consultation with your advisor, right? Super important. And of course, your research question might change, and it may narrow or adjust depending on your literature review, what you're finding from what other scholars have said. You're going to find the sources. This is a long process, obviously. Organize and synthesize them, and write the review. This is the general overview. We'll talk about these steps more in depth as well.
And the nice thing about this is that this is all in the literature. This is stuff you can find. This is all going to be published work that you're looking at. So you're not going to be delving into archives. You're not going to be running your own experiments. You're looking to see what others have done successfully put out there and how disciplines have evolved over time. So don't worry about having to go out and do research on your own. You're doing research, but not the kind of original research you would see in STEM courses or oral histories or that kind of stuff.
I always find it useful to think about just general conversations, because I think sometimes it can be so easy to get into the weeds of just figuring out, just you're doing research, you're going through databases, you're finding so many articles, right? But really try to contextualize it, that these are all scholars having discussions. And what you're trying to do is figure out how you can contribute to that larger conversation about your topic. So let's take a look. In fact, if you want to think about that question, we're going to look at an example. So you can think about how having a literature review might be similar in this way. And we'll pull up an example right here. Okay, so this is from an article, The Journal of Human Behavior in the Social Environment. This is an article basically about language brokering. So most articles are going to be laid out in a very similar way. You're going to have a title, authors, keywords, abstract, and there's going to be a section of the paper that is devoted to reviewing the literature. So this is key here. This introduction section kind of sets the stage, and you can see that there are lots of citations of different scholars all the way in these in-text citations here. And then here we have some definitions. So past research suggests. That phrase is already tipping off.
Good clue. Yep, that's
it's
a
right.
good one right there.
Past research. So then you have this paragraph where this author is actually providing tons of citations and sharing what has been done in the past. This is a literature review. It may not be labeled literature review.
And you will, sometimes you'll see flat out literature review, and other times you'll see it like this. It'll be incorporated into other pieces of the paper, but it'll be clear just by the number of people and the number of citations they're going to have in a lit review is going to be enormous because they're talking about what other work has been done.
So I'm just highlighting, as Drew was saying, just the number of citations.
Yeah.
You can see there's a whole bunch of scholars being cited here and here, right? This is, oh my goodness, this is just a whole sentence of just scholars being cited, right? So this whole section, I would imagine this section as well, characteristics, this whole paragraph, this whole section is basically reviewing the literature.
So,
yeah.
And if you're in a PhD program, if you're in a thesis program, whatever, you're probably going to be writing journal articles along the line as well. So that's a great way to start putting together these kind of chunks of information. If you've ever done an annotated bibliography for an undergraduate class, save those. Those are all things, because what's an annotated bibliography? It's a small literature review. It's saying, I picked these 10 sources because they applied to my topic this way. So.
Sorry. And I am apologizing. I'm struggling with our WebEx. So let me share the screen again. Here we go. Yeah. So that was an example from an article. Should we look at the dissertation?
Sure.
Okay. So these are both language examples, but we can pull up the dissertation one. All right. So a narrative inquiry of second language teacher agency in promoting culturally responsive pedagogy, right? So there's a lot going on. It's basically second language teaching and doing it in a way that's culturally relevant. So in a dissertation, this is 395 pages. That's pretty typical. It's like a book length, right?
Just remember that's double spaced.
It is double spaced. So I always like to find the table of contents. Here we go. So we have, sometimes they even have a whole section labeled literature review. Right here we do. We have an introduction here, but then later on, chapter 2 is a literature review. That's it. the
with
whole
the
thing.
theoretical framework and everything that goes with it. So,
And what I like about this example, we'll take a look. It's set up so there's the literature on culturally responsive pedagogy. So there's that one bucket, right? There's going to be literature on language teachers promotion. And so it takes these little themes and it pulls out the research that's been done. So this is on page 18. Let's go there. Too far, sorry for the scroll. Here we are. Oh, sorry. Chapter 2, literature review. Let me see if I can expand this out just a bit. Oh, maybe not. Not as useful.
yeah.
So, theoretical framework. Critical theory. Okay, so here's the subheadings, right? And so there's going to be a little bit of a review of what the scholars on critical theory have said. That's a huge topic, right? But you're going to have some of the main voices here, the citations. These are all citations about the topic of critical theory. Then you're going to have this bucket, which is the ecological approach to agency, and you're going to have all the citations there. Then you're going to have a whole section on culturally responsive pedagogy. And so these little portions are all part of the literature review, but they're discrete boxes of the literature.
And don't get discouraged if you're not seeing anything that applies directly to what you're doing, because in a way, that is exactly what you're looking for. Miriam, pay attention, because if you think you have something really original to explore, or a variation of something that somebody has done 10 years ago but hasn't been worked on since, that's your sweet spot. That's where you're looking to position yourself. So you can say in any number of ways, this is what other people have worked on. This is where the research has gone on these particular pieces. This is where I want to go with what Smith and Jones did in 1994, and Smith and Harry followed up in 2005. I have not seen anything recently on this, and this is what I hope to do. So you are placing yourself directly in a line of research that has existed, but you're doing a variation or you're doing something completely novel. So.
And because this is early on in the dissertation, it sets the stage.
Right. Yes.
So it's, as Drew was saying, it's using other scholars and it's showing what they've done, and then it's positioning yourself in a unique place.
And it also shows that you are not going to be pursuing something that was considered a dead letter 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 10 years ago. And, because every discipline moves on and changes and adds to its literature, and it's theorizing as things go along. So you don't want to be trapped in something that most of the profession thought was not worth pursuing unless you come up with something really, really original and are prepared to defend it. So.
Yeah, and so you can just see this sets up the whole, it's a long literature review. It goes from page 18 to 94, which is huge.
Which is huge.
It may not be that long for you.
Right. No.
It's likely it will not be.
So.
And then it sets it up because then the next chapter's this person's original research, right? The methodology they're using, their findings, and then it will be the conclusion at the end and the references, right? So you can see if you're doing a dissertation, it's just one chapter setting up your research.
And this is a big dissertation.
Yeah, this is not all dissertations.
Well, and just in passing, you can see over on the right on this screen, we're in a database called ProQuest Dissertations and Theses. And ProQuest is like every other database and adds its own bells and whistles, but you can see other related, whatever algorithm they're using to find these, I don't know, but you can also call through those for ones that look really interesting and look at those reviews too. So, all of this is pretty well tied together, and the databases do make it easier to get collected, or at least collections of related material.
Yeah, feel free to put any questions in the chat if you have them as we go along. Obviously, we want it to be answering your questions. So we looked at two examples.
And this goes back to the conversation point where think of it as a conversation. Like Erin said, you are trying to put yourself into a larger body of work done by people. So it's like what's the next one?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
this one. This is, just read through that. You come in late and you're, that's a really good kind of analogy for all of academic scholarly pursuits. There is nothing in the world that has probably not been looked at, discussed, written about for more or shorter periods of time, but you will never find a topic that hasn't been touched on in some way. So, unless you're making it up. So, that doesn't usually work too well. So,
So a few ways to think about a lit review. You can do a diagram. It can be helpful to do a concept map where you outline different areas of your research. Some of these might overlap. Some may just be in the general areas, but it can be useful to like write it out or draw it graphically as a diagram to start to see the connections of your different themes. Going back to this thesis, you could see that they had laid it out and there was a subheading for each portion of the topic, right? So there was, generally it's about second language teachers and culturally responsive pedagogy, but there's all these little buckets within that, these little subheadings: teacher agency and identity, critical reflection. These are all related to the topic, so that can be really useful. I want to take this one.
oh yeah, this is just another way of thinking about it. You can put, it's a different take on how you're going to organize what you find. So you can find the stuff that's definitely on topic. You can find the stuff that's directly related, the stuff that's marginally related, the stuff that was wildly popular and then died off. So how you, depending on your topic and depending on who you are working with as an advisor, really discuss in depth how they would like you to organize, how they would like you to see you organize this work. Because that will also give you an indication of how you're going to write the rest of the paper. So, you know, there's so many different ways. You saw in the PhD dissertation that long, extensive, almost an index of things that was going on. So you could do it that way. You could have this incorporated into the different pieces of the paper, the way this does, the way the article does. Different disciplines approach these differently. So, and if you walk away remembering nothing else, remember that talk to your professors, talk to your advisor all the time. Do not let things go until the last minute, or don't get 3/4 of the way into it in order and then turn it in and they go, oh no, you're not, this is off track. You don't want that to happen. So be in touch. Yeah, you don't want to do this. This is like an 8th grade history paper. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, the end. This is like, you don't want to do this. Author 1 says this, author 2 says this, author 3 says this, author 4 says this. You don't, that's a textbook. You don't want to do that. You want to say author 1 began a conversation like this. Author 4 picked it up 20 years later, thinking about it like this. So, what's the word I'm hunting for? You want it to be a nuanced approach to the literature, not just a chronological approach or systematic approach to the literature.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that, that's exactly right. In this case, it would be no synthesis or analysis. You're just saying they said this, they said this, they said this, right? What you really want to be doing is interweaving the authors and putting them in conversation with each other. It goes back to that conversation analogy, right? So how are authors agreeing? How are they disagreeing? How are they different?
Yeah, disagreeing can be as important as the agreeing part. So, you can have Freudians in psych, and you can have Jungians in psych, and you can have a long conversation about how those both have evolved in reaction to each other. So, that's the kind of thing that's the kind of thing you're working toward.
Yeah, yeah. So much more analysis is what you want to get. So we talked about general steps. Let's go a little more in depth and kind of drill down. These are some recommendations, and these are some of the processes for working on a literature review.
Yep. So, working topic, that's always a good thing unless you don't have one, in which case you really have to identify. That's where you're going to look at surveys. That's where we're looking at a textbook, looking at histories of whatever it is you're working on, teaching, history, whatever, sociology can come in handy. You need something to anchor your search to. You need some sort of search terms, whether or not you are going to find stuff directly on that or not, you still have to need something to work from. Because if you pop in, these days, if you pop in something like sociology into our article search, you get millions of articles. So you just start identifying classic studies, theories, theorists, that kind of thing, because those are the ones that are going to be the ones that they're analyze. Read broadly to start identifying assumptions, methodologies, testing.
Yeah.
Often cite and really track your authors and track your journals. That's a nice way of also identifying when you start to publish where you might want to submit to. Because if you're finding, if you have a topic and you're finding the same authors publishing in the same journals over and over again, those are the journals you want to be reading. You want to be reading not only the articles, but the commentary, the replies, all of that, because that's where the meat is for the lit review, for the current standing of things. So.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I will say that this literature section, if you're not sure what some of the main databases are, or if you're not sure about some of those subject headings, that's actually something that librarians really are happy to help with. So you can reach out to the librarian in your discipline. We'll show you that too. You can reach out to us and ask, and we can kind of either help you or send you on to the librarian who has expertise in that area.
And if it's so new, or if it's an emerging field, I was working with Miriam on large data projects, and there's not a lot of lit out there yet about working with really large data sets or data arrays or manipulating that. So then you want to go talk to your advisor and say, there's not a lot here. Where do you suggest I look to see how others have approached this kind of problem, where there's a huge amount of data, but no clear way of manipulating or addressing it. So.
These are just some ideas for organizing. People do it differently. Obviously, the image, this is someone who's writing down themes and grouping them by color and able to move them around. So if that's useful to you, you can use that. You can also organize just by writing outlines. You can organize by using some of those buckets. You can organize graphically with a little graphic concept map. But your goal is to identify patterns and themes. What are some of the major discussion topics? Do they agree? Do they disagree? What are some of the major findings in the research and trends? And from there, you can really start to hone in and craft your thesis. Obviously, this is all iterative. You might go back and take a look again at your research topic, right? This can be revised, right? You can look at your analysis again. There's all these steps inform each other. It's a little bit cyclical.
And you can also set up alerts in the databases to send you articles from journals on a regular basis when new ones come out, all that. We do this for the social science and the humanities because it's very different from STEM or engineering or the hard sciences where things are much more linear. So you get a lot more
Nuance.
wishy-washiness.
Yeah, discussion, nuance,
Discussion,
disagreement.
permeability between disciplines than in the social sciences and the humanities than you do in STEM, because the STEM stuff is pretty linear. What do you see in the lit? You see the results of successful experiments. You do not see the failures. You don't see the stuff that didn't work out. You see the stuff that gets published. So that's what you get to work with, and you can say, okay, this person has taken this algorithm this far and used it for this. I am going to take the algorithm that they used, add this, this, and this, and make this. So it's much more linear than this is, which is you can have things come in from different disciplines. You can have authors that deal in more than one discipline. It's a lot more nuanced. So it's one of my favorite words.
Very nuanced. And I just wanted to call out Smitha, thank you for putting this suggestion, lucid chart, which is a digital form of drawing. This is excellent. Yes, absolutely. This is a great tool. Thank you for putting that there. So find a method that works for you, whether it's digital or it's using Post-it notes,
right.
If it's outlining, whatever is most helpful to find the themes and sub-themes. Okay. And this is what we're talking about. Develop headings and subheadings. You want to definitely provide a synthesis, progress thematically, and look at discussions that are happening in the literature. As you're writing and as you're editing your paper, you really want to focus on the analysis. That is the most important. We can look at a few examples.
Sure.
We're going to open up our Oxford bibliographies. Bibliography is kind of the nuts and bolts of the underpinnings of what you're finding in a database. It's the major established literature, right? And a bibliography helps you identify that. Which one do we want?
Let's try to find something that's actually kind of, yeah. The thing about bibliographies is bibliographies sort of fell by the wayside when databases came up. Reference publishers used to do bibliographies all the time. So, and what a bibliography does is, and you can look in these by topic, by keyword, and then what it does is it gives you, depending on the bibliography and who's writing it, go into just pick a word, go adolescent, depression, it doesn't matter, abortion, whatever. So if you look over on the left, you'll see there's a table of contents. It'll say related articles. It'll say forthcoming articles. If you scroll down, it'll tell you what the big journals are, or half the times it will. Who major authors, reference works, all of that. It's pointing you where to look. So if you're unclear about where to start, and we have these Oxford bibliographies are very discipline driven. So we don't have a whole lot for the social sciences yet, but because these are expensive. But they're really nice if you can find something in here on your topic, then you're going to have a list of things to look at right from the get-go. And don't overlook the good reference tools. Don't overlook the disciplinary dictionaries and encyclopedias, because you're going to find references there on. The whole purpose of a good encyclopedia is to give you an overview with other places to look. And you will find bibliographies up in the stacks, old bibliographies. We have very few left in the reference collection itself because they've basically been turned into databases, which don't do the same thing, but can kind of be used for the same thing. We have the bibliography of the history of medicine downstairs in the reference collection, which is just 6 volumes of articles written that becomes Medline, the database. So that kind of bibliography is one thing. These Oxford bibliographies do more than that. They go into the old style bibliography where everything you get reference, you get reviews of reference sources, you get authors to read, you get journals to look in. So play with those if we've got them.
A really good place, and we've already shown an example from, but now we can just look at the database itself, the ProQuest dissertations and theses database. We have a few of these. There's the main one, which is database. This is dissertations from across North America, but also there's some international ones.
Well, yeah,
and there's
ProQuest has gone international now, but it's primarily the repository of record for United States, certainly dissertations, and a lot of places are now including their master's theses. So, and then we also have the one for strictly on UMBC.
Yeah, so this would be,
and this is really important if you're doing a PhD or a master's thesis, looking to see how others in your department have done these. And you can pull up who they've worked with, and you can see how, if you're working with the same advisor, you can see how they did it and how they found it acceptable. So, this isn't cheating. This is the way scholarly academic research progresses. It's all tied together and it's a collective.
And it's fun to see works from the department, right? This is UMBC School of Public Policy. This was the professor that worked, was Nancy Miller. So it's really great to see that.
And you will basically find we have access to ProQuest dissertations. We're supposed to have access for at least the most current 7 years in the big ProQuest. You're going to get a lot more than that because anybody who is allowed, who's had their dissertation asked for once, it's up there. It's going to be up there anyway. You will occasionally find dissertations that are not available full text because the author has denied permission for them to be put up. Usually that means that they have some sort of book in progress or relations with a publisher to create a book, or they're working on a project that they can monetize in some way. So they aren't putting out the data yet. So.
And then we do have the Network Digital Library, which focuses on international dissertations.
And the international community in lots of ways is way ahead of us as far as open access and putting these things up.
And you can see the language results. So it's really fun. You can see it's very international. And you can specify just the English ones if you want, or you can, if you speak other languages, you can explore those as well.
Or if you're working in a discipline that has a lot of researchers who work in primarily another language, you can look for those. Major papers are usually going to get translated fairly quickly, and they usually get published in major journals. A lot of them come in English.
Yeah, that's very true. So I put the link to the main page that gives you these options. The first three, this is the main ProQuest for all of, North America, but some international. This is the UMBC specific one, and this is the international dissertation website.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're struggling with how to lay one out, go find one that's been done for your department. Ideally, you can find one that was done with your advisor and see how they did it. Because there's nothing like having halfway through something and somebody telling you, nope.
That's right. You can also look for articles. If you want to focus on articles specifically and look at the literature of articles, you can do the article tab. Let me pull open just the library homepage. That would be here, and this is a conglomeration of our major all of our major EBSCO databases.
EBSCO and a few other publishers, some of the newspapers, not a lot from the streaming video, but what this is, think of this as sort of the best Google Scholar that you're paying for. So anything in here, oh God, did we even mention IOL yet?
Yeah, so
this is an EBSCO product. That's who we buy a lot of. So it looks very similar to our databases because it has all the same bells and whistles that our databases do. So you have date limiters, you can limit to academic sources, you can limit to popular sources, you can do whatever you.
So use those limiters there. You can limit by type of source as well. And then you'll see a number of different access options. Some will be the Find It button. Some will say Request an Interlibrary Loan. Some will say PDF full text. Some will have linked full text. So that we can get these articles to you. The PDF will be immediately available, obviously. You can read it right now. If it says interlibrary loan, it just means that we need to request it from another library. And you can definitely set up your account. So you can click on request their interlibrary loan. I already have an account, so it's linking me through mine. Oh, here we go, sorry. Authenticate.
Yeah, just remember, if it's in the published literature, it's out there. It was meant to be distributed. So we can get this stuff. You're paying for this, so you may as well use it. Never pay for anything you find out there on the web if they're asking, and you'll see it all the time. Yeah, here's an article from Journal of blah, 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 $27 or $34 or whatever. Put it through look first to see whether we have it in the article search. If we don't, order it through ILL. There are real people in the library. It's not just a bot. So you can correspond with them if you need to, but it's a really nice system and it will get you pretty much anything that's out there in the published lit.
Yeah.
Find this form again.
Yeah, let me show you. So I'm just showing my account. It will pull in the title and everything, and to submit it, I would just submit the request. I don't need this article, so I'm not going
The only thing, once your account is set up, is you need to put it in not wanted after date. And that only got added because so many ILLs were hanging out there, not picked up by the people who had requested them. So,
yeah. And then I would say, once you set up an account, it will give you the articles that you have. So this is something I requested, and I have the full article now put in my account. I've also downloaded it to my computer, so I have it forever.
Once you have these, you have them forever. Just make sure you download it because it expires in
30 days. Yep. Yep. So to find the form, go to the main library homepage, click on using the library, click on my accounts, click on interlibrary loan account. So let me put this in the chat. The first time you use interlibrary loan, it will prompt you through a form that just asks for your name, your email address, a way to contact you. And you'll also have to put your library ID card, which is, do you have your ID? Awesome. So Drew will
This
show
is probably
you.
the only number that you're going to, the only place you're going to need this for. When you set up your ILL account, the 13-digit over the barcode.
Yep, that's the number.
So that's the one you need, not your 2-digit, your 2-letter, 5-digit number ID.
Yeah. Yep. And you can always use the chat. You can see on the library homepage, there's always a chat box over here, the yellow button, and there's often a red one down here. If you have questions at any point, just put in a chat and we're happy to help. So the other thing you can do is search for books and ebooks. That would be the tab here, and you could find all the literature in the book that's been published.
The monograph literature, books. Books.
Books or ebooks. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
going
we
to
have a
come
lot
up here.
more ebooks these days because of obviously the plague that we've been going through. So, and if you want the big data, so we have two catalogs. We have the USM catalog and the UMBC catalog. If you click on advanced search underneath the book thing, you'll see that here's the list. WorldCat is the catalog of catalogs, and you would be wise to look in there to see what's been published by authors, by whatever. This is the utility that libraries use for adding titles to their own catalogs. So this has got soup to nuts of what's out there.
This is specifically books is the best
Yeah,
and
this-
archival
Yeah,
materials.
you don't want, it's books, it's internet stuff, you want to avoid articles. The only kind of articles you see in here are ones that have been pulled out and cataloged as one-offs. So if your professor has written like the seminal article 10 years ago on whatever, and a cataloger comes along and says, oh my God, this has got 9,000 hits. They pull it out, they catalog it as a separate item, which would be technically a monograph. It becomes its own entity. So it would be published separately. It would have a separate publisher. You could still find it as an article in the journal it was originally published in, but this would be a standalone. So don't use this for looking for articles. You want to look at for books, archival collections. Those are the big ones that we use it for. You could sort this by date. It's sorted right now by default, most libraries. So most holding libraries. So you can do it by that too. So.
Yeah. And the other thing, if you're interested in learning specific databases for your subject area, you can go to research help, click on subject guide. And these are sorted by the different majors at UMBC. So we do have health administration and policy guide, for example. The find articles are going to give you the top databases. If it has EBSCO in the title, it will be included in that main article search on the homepage. If not, like Web of Science, this would be one you'd want to search by itself. If that
Right,
makes sense.
and if you're a citation geek, Web of Science is where you want to start. Now, for the social sciences, Web of Science is very good for STEM topics. It's good for harder and social sciences. It's not so good for humanities, but you can always try it. What it does is it works by citation count. So if you put in a topic or author's name or whatever, or this is like. So what you get is a list of articles that tells you, and this is all relevancy ranked by whatever your search was. You get the number of references that are used that this author used in this paper, and then the number of times that this paper has been cited by more recent authors, because obviously if this hadn't been written, they couldn't be citing it. So, but then you can sort by relevance, you can sort by date, you can sort by, what's the other one?
Highly cited papers.
Highly cited papers. You can sort by number of citations. Citations.
So this has 7,000 citations. This was a paper that was published in 2012, so it's had enough time for it to be cited that often, right? You can also look at.
Well, you can also see. Look at the title: Global and regional mortality for causes of death for 20 age groups in 1990 and 2010. So yes, somebody could use the data from this from any number of things, which is why it's got 7,310 citations. Obviously, enough people thought, and it's got 110 references. So obviously, there were 7,000 people that cited something from this in the last. Was it published 10 years?
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really interesting way to get very focused results on very specific topics if you want to use it this way, or just as a supplement to what you're already doing. So, but like I said, the journal subsets that it draws from are not as broad as some of the databases that we have, and certainly not in the social sciences or humanities.
So I'll just drop in the chat the link to that subject guide page if you're interested in exploring. Maybe I already had it, sorry. But there's that page you can explore by topic.
You can explore by keyword, you can explore by topic, you can explore by author. So
yeah. We talked about Web of Science. That's a good one to look at who
good
cited who. Yep, absolutely.
you will also see that, especially if you're doing something in engineering or IS or CS, you will also see them, the database platforms, the publishers that are putting up the platforms are now doing that now. So you will see for an article, oh, cited 62 times, or viewed 62 times, or read 62 times, or whatever. It's an interesting way to see what others in your field are also reading. So, you know, you're not alone out there. You're not doing this in a vacuum. People are looking and reading and writing all the time. So
yeah, and we just want to be mindful of your time, but if there are folks with specific questions, feel free to share.
yeah, please, you can take off you can unmute, or you can put it in chat. We did want to make sure that you were aware that there's chat from 10 to 5, Monday through Friday. If you have just a quick question, if you need to make a virtual appointment with anybody, there's a make an appointment page. We all have hours that are set up for different things.
And so if you see, you can see Drew's name here, you can see my name here. So one of us, or you can go by your department. Say you have an economics question, Jasmine is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, or health. Semhar is your librarian, right? So you can click on any of these, schedule an appointment. These are all online. You can look at the next week.
we all do multiple departments. So we have any of our names, wherever you click on them, will bring up the same calendar. So
yep, yeah, so. Exactly. And you can also just feel free to email us as well. Let me make sure I put the link to, this is the way to make an appointment. Our emails are on the screen, and we'll share out our recording and the slides from today to anyone who joined and who was registered in my UMBC.
Yeah, and we're not particularly prideful. If we are struggling and not finding anything, we'll be happy to refer you to somebody else.
Yeah.
Or more than likely refer you back to your department to help get clarifications on things that are obviously not useful in your searching, because there's one thing to turn up nothing on a topic because nothing has been written, because it's so new, and turning up nothing because you're not using the right words, or you're spelling something wrong, or any number of other things. But like I said, there's very little out there that hasn't had something written about it. So, but yeah, I mean, we work together. We all work together. So, you know, if I can't help you, I'll turf you over to Erin. If she can't, she'll turf you over to Katie or Joanna or Jasmine. You know, so it's a collaborative effort.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, so thank you again for your time. The workshop's at an end, but we're going to be here the next 5 minutes or so. If there's any specific questions, maybe what I'll do is I will stop the recording as well. So that, thank you so much. We'll stop that.